All right, so I've been talking about all these systems, the awareness and the habits and the identity and the comfort and, being able to see the patterns and shape our lives because once I started thinking systematically, as I said before, I started to see systems absolutely everywhere. For a while, I thought this can only be a good thing. This can only be great. And as I said, it's a powerful realization, seeing your habits, seeing your behaviors. As I said, I saw it in a lot of different areas of my life, my lateness, my work, my music, my fitness. I could really, for the first time, just almost understand why everything was happening in my life, or begin to have an understanding of why things are happening. And before that, if I'm being honest, I was mainly a doer. I wasn't someone who sort of sat back and thought about what he was going to do. I was someone who done it, jumped straight in, made the mistakes, and then thought about the consequences later, or deal with the consequences afterwards. Analysis wasn't really my strong point, if I'm being honest. But since learning to think systematically, I've become a lot more analytical, a lot more reflective. And again, that just makes you more aware of the patterns, more aware of your behaviors. And it's helped me so much. There's so many benefits that I've gained from it. As I said, there was things that I just couldn't see before, but once you think this way, you see it all. It's things that were previously running in the background, unnoticed, come to the forefront. However, I also know that there's always a yin to a yang. There is another side. Because once you start seeing systems, there's that temptation to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And basically, you don't always know when to take off the engineer hat. You know, as I said, I sort of see myself as an engineer of my own life now. I'm always observing, I'm always analysing, I'm always asking questions and trying to think of different ways. I'm trying to understand what's caused this and what's caused that. And if I'm not careful, eventually I can end up over analysing everything, analysing every habit and decision and every mistake. And, you know, it has felt at times that it feels like almost like studying my life more than I'm actually living it, if that makes sense. It's a very, very thin line. Thin line. It's almost like, as I said, that's when I realized that there is two versions of me. There's the doer, and there's the planner. As I said, the planner steps outside of the systems, steps outside of myself, and observes, journals, records data, analyzes, reflects, learns, and then makes mental adjustments. But the human side is actually the doer, the person who actually goes back into the life, experiences things, creates things. You make the mistakes, you have those conversations, you take all the risks, you express yourself. You literally just live. You live life. As much as analysis does help me, you can never stay analyzing. You can't stay outside of yourself. You eventually always have to jump back in and start to do. Analysis was never supposed to replace living. It was supposed to support it, make living better. Started realizing that growth is that cycle really, because as I said, you step out, you observe, you analyze, you collect the data, you rethink, and then you jump back in. and you live and you act and you experience and you express yourself. And it's just a consistent cycle of that. So yeah, I realized that there is a danger of staying in engineer mode, trying to optimize everything, trying to control everything, trying to understand everything. We kind of all know in life there's so many things that happen that you can't understand, that you had no control over, that no amount of analysis or no amount of pre-thinking would have been able to avoid this, because life throws curveballs at you all the time. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things that are unexpected, so many things that we don't plan for, and no amount of awareness you build can completely avoid all those moments. And to be honest, it's those moments that add to the experience of life, the unexpected moments, the impromptu moments. Awareness is powerful, but awareness was never the purpose. You know what I mean? As I said, it was a tool. It was always meant to be a tool used to have a better quality of life. And it's funny because I also noticed another side to this systematic thinking is that as much as it does benefit me and I understand it, doesn't mean that anybody else understands or wants to hear it. I've had conversations with people and, they're just talking and my brain starts to analyze, and they might be telling me about a situation that's happened and I'm thinking environment. I'm thinking, yeah, what was the layout? What happened? Why did A become B and C? And sometimes they just want to vent. They don't even want to, they don't want to be analyzed. They just want to connect. I mean, they just want to be able to confide in someone and just have a human connection. In a strange way, it's the same kind of trap that I've been talking about throughout the whole episode. Becoming so focused on analyzing life that you forget to actually live it yourself. Become so focused on understanding people that you forget that when it comes to people, the whole point is to connect. Yes, you do need to understand to connect, but if you stay analyzing, it's almost like you're outside of it. You're not in the moment. I hope you guys get what I'm saying. Yeah. Again, it's even when the analysis is correct, even if the system makes sense, it doesn't automatically mean that anybody else wants to hear it, or that it's what you're meant to be sharing. Sometimes keep it to yourself. Yeah. But that's what the whole journey is sort of teaching me. Not to stop analyzing, not to stop learning, or becoming aware, but everything is about the balance. To balance the engineer with the human. It's why I started this whole series in the first place, because humans without systems lack structure, but a system without humans lack feeling, lacks meaning, it lacks life. So I'm always trying to work on that balance, but as you know, I'm forever learning.